So I'm sure over the last 3 weeks or so that everybody at one point or another has been saying to him or herself, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe it in regard to the pandemic and the quarantine and such. But I bet you at a deeper level, somewhere, you know that you're not entirely surprised by what is happening to us. Hi, I'm Neil Wells, and I'm going to convince you that on some deep level, you have been expecting something like this pandemic to happen. And not only that, in some unconscious way, you've been yearning for this giant destruction and disruption that it's causing. So first, I want to make a caveat that people are really suffering, family members are dying, and no one wants that. I don't want to minimize that in any way, but I'm making a point here. I'm trying to get at ideas that will hopefully reveal a deeper truth. Okay, so I'm coming to this idea that you're not surprised by this, and that there's a way in which people have been yearning for something like this. And how I'm going to show this is by looking at our pop culture, the culture that we respond to, what becomes popular, is a sign of what we think about in our imaginations and what we spend time pondering. So some things that have happened, some things in recent years are very obvious. So I'm going to go, and I have to read this because this is a list. Okay, so some things are very obvious that we've been seeing. So the movies Contagion, Outbreak, the series of The Walking Dead, World War Z, Zombieland, Bird Box, a thing called The Last Ship, where the tagline is, the crew of a Navy destroyer is forced to confront the reality of a new existence when a pandemic kills off most of the Earth's population. So all those things have to deal with viruses, and things coming that wreak world havoc. But there are more in the last 20 years. So these are movies where the world is totally disrupted and destroyed, and millions of people die in some cases, just to move the plot along forward. You got Independence Day, Day After Tomorrow, Deep Impact, Armageddon, 2012, San Andreas, I Am Legend, the whole Infinity War Endgame, where half the people are gone for 5 years and such. I mean, that's a huge permanent disruption to reality. The whole Man of Steel Justice League, where Metropolis, which is really New York, gets wiped out. Edge of Tomorrow, Elysium, Passengers, Waterworld, Interstellar, Snowpiercer, the new Planet of the Apes, District 9, and of course, A Quiet Place. And then not only do you have that in movies, you have television, beginning with the TV series 24, where whole cities are blown up off screen with nuclear bombs. Dark Angel, V, The Leftovers, Fallen Skies, Revolution, The 300, Colony, Defiance, 12 Monkeys. And not only that, things for teens and children. You have Maze Runner, The Fifth Wave, The Hunger Games, and of course, Wall-E. So all these doomsday things have been in our culture. They're very popular. And I think that what this tells us is that there are three reasons why we have this constant contemplation of seeing the world as we know it destroyed. And the first thing is that somehow in our collective consciousness, we just feel that things are accelerating too fast, that it just can't possibly go on like this. So we just are picturing, just with all the technology and movement and everything that we're hearing about climate change, that it just doesn't seem possible to us on some intuitive level that it can just keep accelerating and winding, and this is what we keep thinking about. The second thing is that we watch these things, and what this does is that this is preparing ourselves for these possibilities. That we watch this and we imagine, how would we get through the zombie apocalypse? What will we do to survive? How will we take care of our families? That this is what the movies do, that they show us this future so that we become accustomed to imagining, to seeing a new way things will be before it actually happens. And the third thing that's having all this in the popular culture does for us, and this is the icky one that might be a little bit more challenging to understand, is that we tell ourselves these stories as a kind of wish fulfillment. That we imagine this is what writing does, story movies and TV, is that we can see our imagination play out things that we want to see happen. It's fantasy, these alternative lives. So so my argument here, really the second part of my argument, is that we have this yearning for disruption to the world as it was. And why would we have that? Well, anxiety rates, depression, suicide, substance abuse with drugs and alcohol have never been higher than that they had been. Poverty, economic inequality, struggle, misery, with how much loneliness people feel despite all our devices. All these things are rampant through American society and through societies across the world, because the world is becoming so much like us, where it's all about making money, and we've lost that ability to connect to friends and that closeness that ties people together. And this is happening all over, and there's a way in which we're just, as a people, much more miserable and worn out than we were generations ago. One thing I'll say personally is that I miss seeing you guys very much, but the truth is I don't miss, how did I describe it, a tight, supportive community or an elaborate network of friends, because I really didn't have that. I like going out and mingling and having nightlife and mingling with you guys because you're strangers when we met in the beginning, and I like getting to know people, but I'm not missing a tight, close community because I didn't have that before this started. So all in all, what I'm trying to say is that at some level, all of us, through the things that we've been watching and thinking about in the culture, we desperately wanted some kind of change that made imagining the situation that we're in now not quite as impossible as at first glance you would think that it was. So why is this important to really understand at this point? Well, it's really important to understand what I'm saying because someday the pandemic and the quarantine, it will end. I don't know how long it will be. My thoughts at the moment are that this is going to go on for a long time, longer than anyone is currently talking about. But it will end, and when it does end, there are going to be fewer older people, because that's what the virus is mostly targeting demographically. And when that happens, wealth is going to trickle down. Is going to come down to the younger generation. Wealth and opportunity, economic opportunities, because that's how it works. It will take a while for that to happen. It won't happen right away, but there are going to be, in the years to come, opportunities for younger people to step up and fill in roles and to take over and to be the next generation that is in charge of things. So then the question is, what are the young survivors going to do to rebuild the world after this happens? And when I say they, I mean you guys, the students in my class. This is going to be your opportunity to recreate the world. And the question is, are you going to create the world as it was, where all the misery and pressure and stress that we put upon each other just continues? Or are you going to create a world that's different, a world that hopefully your children won't have fantasies of trying to destroy? Thank you very much.